Have you ever thought about cells touching each other? No? Well, they do, and it's a very important process that happens in your body. Today, we will be talking to you about 3 types of cell communication: cell-to-cell, short-distance, and long-distance communication. Cell-to-cell communication is when cells communicate by binding to each other at certain sites. Before I give you this example, let me tell you what each portion here represents. This blue cell right here represents a T cell. This purple cell right here represents a macrophage. This brown protruding portion represents the MHC4 protein complex. And this protruding pink part right here represents the complex which binds to the MHC4. This orange thing right here represents the antigen. So, in this type of communication, when using a macrophage, the macrophage engulfs the antigen and a lysosome is formed around it. A poison is sent into the lysosome, cutting the antigen up into many small pieces. Next, this antigen piece is presented on the MHC4 protein site. The T cell comes and binds to the site, taking this small portion of the antigen with it when it leaves. The T cell then uses this antigen to show other T cells and lymphocytes what the invader they are looking for looks like.
Second, we have a short-distance cell-to-cell communication that involves a mechanism called a local regulator. An example of a local regulator in our bodies is a magnificent neuron. The structure of a neuron consists of a dendrite, nucleus, nodes of Ranvier, myelin sheath, axon terminal, and dendritic bulbs. In a neuron, the nucleus tells the cell what signal to transmit. The signal is passed through an axon terminal, which is protected by the myelin sheath, which also speeds up the nerve impulse. The impulse travels in small vesicles to the presynaptic cleft. There is an influx of calcium ions into the presynaptic cleft, causing neurotransmitters to diffuse by exocytosis into the inner membrane space. From there, the neurotransmitter attaches onto a receptor that is bound to the postsynaptic membrane. The neurotransmitter is diffused into the postsynaptic terminal. It is deposited into a new vesicle that is made by a surface membrane cell. If something goes wrong during the signaling, the neurotransmitter will be either taken up back into the presynaptic membrane, a process known as reuptake. Otherwise, an enzyme that is floating in the membrane will hydrolyze it.
Oh, nom 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 nom. The third type of communication is long-distance cell-to-cell communication, a process that requires the use of hormones. Now, before I explain to you how this process works, let me just tell you what each item here represents. This purple squiggly line represents the bloodstream. This green represents the receptors on the membrane of the cell. This represents the cell, and these little brown things here represent glucose molecules. This represents the pancreas, while these round blue balls represent glucagon. A signal from the body triggers the release of a hormone from one of the endocrine glands. For example, when there is not enough glucose in the blood, the pancreas releases glucagon. This hormone goes and attaches to its specific target cell. Once the hormone has attached to its specific receptor on the target cell, the glucose is released into the bloodstream by exocytosis. This increases the blood glucose levels until it is at an agreeable level. Hello class, and welcome to Biology 101. Today, we will be talking to you about the evolutionary significance of the three different types of cell-to-cell communication. This is your teacher for today, Mrs. Snow. This is Slimy, and this is Penguin, your two students.
There are three types of cell communication. The first type is cell-to-cell. When there is direct cell-to-cell communication, the message is immediately received, and the cell can start doing its job immediately. This is important because when talking about the immune system, you want your body to create antibodies to the antigens as soon as possible. With direct cell-to-cell communication, this is possible, thus helping your body fight off germs ASAP. The second cell communication is short distance. The signal could be inhibited if needed. This is important because if a signal is released that is unnecessary or detrimental, it could be reuptaken or hydrolyzed to minimize the possibilities of problems, and to minimize energy usage, thus conserving the energy. Furthermore, this type of communication allows cells working together to communicate more efficiently.
The third and final type of cell communication we will be talking about today is long-distance cell-to-cell communication, which requires the use of hormones. Hormones are important in maintaining the body's homeostasis so that when the environment changes, hormones are there and necessary to regulate and control the body's functions. Hormones help with natural selection and help with the survival of organisms over time. The hormones that are beneficial help the organisms stay alive, allowing these hormones to be passed on to the next generation of offspring produced by these surviving organisms. Thank you, Mrs. Snow. Thank you, Snowy. Thank you, class, and I hope that was helpful.